America's Hidden History of Eugenics by Dawn Beckham. Typically, when we hear the term eugenics, the first thing that comes to mind is Adolf Hitler, the ethnic cleansing of an untold number of Jewish individuals, and the horrors of the experiments and murders that have occurred in their concentration camps. Very few Americans are aware that Hitler got many of his ideas from practices and policies that are already taking place in the United States. According to Sandel, eugenics was a movement to improve the genetic makeup of the human race. It was thought that through better breeding amongst our population, it would increase the chances of more favorable traits emerging. At the same time that we were breeding better humans, eugenic principles were being applied to forced sterilization of people that society deemed unfavorable. America has a hidden history of eugenic principles and practices. It is a dark, mostly forgotten part of our past, and if the topic is not brought to light, we will be doomed to repeat it. The modern idea of eugenics came back into public favor in the most innocuous of ways. Gregor Mendel, who was a monk in the Czech Republic, wrote about his experiment with garden peas back in 1866. He theorized that inheritance follows predictable patterns of laws and that the combination predictably produces variations to characteristics of the plants such as flower color, texture, or look of the seed. Certain factors are discrete and remain unchanged for generations. The experiment showed that dominant traits of pea plants, the yellow seed, appear whenever one of its inherited factors is dominant. The recessive trait green seeds appear only when both inherited factors are recessive. Mendel believed that his research showed that each trait is determined by a pair of factors with each parent contributing one factor. A simple way of understanding it is like begets like. After Mendel published his article, his theories received little to no notoriety, until they were rediscovered and used to validate the eugenic principles of Sir Francis Galton. The term eugenics was invented by a British scholar named Sir Francis Galton, and he is believed to be the spearhead of the eugenics movements in the United States, Britain, and Canada. Drawing inspiration from Mendel's work and from theories from his cousin Charles Darwin, in 1869 Galton published a book called Hereditary Genius, where he attempted to show that success ran in families, and the more closely related you were to a high achiever, the more likely you were to become one yourself. Galton believed that this proved his hereditary theory correct. With his theory on genes, eugenics became associated with genetic determinism. Galton describes his term eugenics as the science of improving stock through judicious mating. The literal translation of the word eugenics means well-born, but as the term evolved over time, its definition has expanded. The definition as we know it today includes actions, thoughts, and beliefs whose main goal is to improve the genes and inheritable qualities of the human race. The popularity of Galton's theories of eugenics spread by the beginning of the 20th century. The word eugenics was being used in public academically and was used when creating public policy. Since people with disabilities could no longer find adequate employment, they were forced to be more reliant on our government. Around the same time our government was struggling to support its growing disabled population, the idea of eugenics was becoming popular. The influence can be separated into two parts, the social beliefs of eugenics and the scientific aspects. The social influences of eugenics began to spread in the 1920s and 30s. Throughout the country, many social clubs formed with the premise of spreading eugenic principles. Club members held competitions to see who embodied the eugenics principles the best. They would have fitter family and better baby competitions at fairs and exhibitions. Movies and books about eugenics were also popular at that time. A fan favorite was a eugenic film called The Black Stork, which was based on a true story about a heroic doctor that allowed a baby born with syphilis to die after convincing the parents that it was better for society if the baby did not survive to become a burden. In 1912, eugenicist Henry Goddard published a book titled The Kallikak Family, A Study in the Heredity of Feeble-Mindedness. In the course of researching genealogy, he learned about the history of one of his patients. The book is written about a woman named Emma Wolverton, who in the book is called Deborah Kallikak. Mr. Goddard claims to have traced Deborah's genealogy to Martin Kallikak, her great-great-great-grandfather. Martin was considered a moral man, but had an affair and impregnated a barmaid whose society had labeled feeble-minded. When the affair ended, Martin continued on with his upright life. All of the many legitimate offsprings that he and his wife had were considered prosperous, morally upright, and no signs of any disabilities. According to Goddard's research, the children that was produced by Martin's affair with the feeble-minded barmaid went on to have generations of children that were poor, mentally unstable, delinquents, and suffered from many forms of intellectual disabilities. Goddard believed that the two strands of Kallikak family proved that intelligence and morality were inherited, and that society should make a conscious effort to keep feeble-minded individuals from reproducing. Goddard theorized that one pregnancy of a feeble-minded person would create generations of crime and poverty. His solution to the issue was that the feeble-minded should be segregated from society and put in colonies or institutions where they can be educated on how to perform various forms of menial labor. He claimed that such colonies will save annual loss in property and life due to the actions of these irresponsible people, sufficient to nearly or quite offset the expense of the new plant. While the study of the Kallikaks focused on the examples of feeble-mindedness that was handed down from generation to generation, another popular study of the time was the Jukes. The focus on that one was heritability of poverty and criminality. In 1874, Richard L. Dugdale visited 6 inmates in jail who were members of the same family. When he researched their genealogy, he found that out of the 29 males in the immediate family, 17 of them had been arrested and 15 convicted of serious crimes. Dugdale claims he was able to trace the Jukes lineage to a man called Max and a woman named Margaret Robinson Slaughter. Max was a descendant of Dutch settlers, and Margaret was alleged to be the wife of one of Max's sons. Dugdale's research concluded that this family was afflicted with generational poverty, criminality, and physical and mental illness. It was established that the Jukes family had cost taxpayers $1,308,000 over a period of 75 years starting in the 1800s. Dugdale believed that the causality of the behavior was environmental and not hereditary. Dugdale theorized environment tends to produce habits which may become hereditary. He also made a point of mentioning that the Jukes were not a single family. They were a mix of 42 loosely related families, that only 540 of his 709 subjects were blood relatives. The others were related through marriage. The eugenics movement in this country quickly took a dark turn, and they began focusing on eliminating the so-called negative traits within society through forced sterilization. The goal was to improve the genetic makeup of Americans by encouraging positive eugenic marriages and births and discourage the poor, disabled, minorities, or feeble-minded from reproducing. One of the main methods that was done was through sterilization. It became the popular belief that in order to prevent these groups of people from continuing to contaminate the population further, legal action must be taken and eugenics beliefs must drive future legislation. Legalized forced sterilization amongst the undesirable population became the law in many states. By 1931, 31 states had laws on the books for legalized sterilization. This practice resulted in forced sterilization of over 64,000 people in this country. At first, sterilization efforts focused on individuals who were physically or mentally impaired, but later grew to include people who were in prison, sexually promiscuous, or impoverished. Society had classified individuals who fell into these categories as having moral or social disability, therefore they needed to forfeit their reproductive rights. In Buck v. Bell, the state of Virginia sought to sterilize Carrie Buck, who was involuntarily institutionalized. The state believed that she was an appropriate candidate for sterilization due to her promiscuity, as evidenced by her giving birth to a baby out of wedlock at the age of 17. They also reasoned that because her mother was institutionalized as well, and that Carrie's daughter was believed to be feeble-minded, then any future children that Carrie produced would be predisposed to mental instability, promiscuity, and feeble-mindedness as well. Carrie ultimately lost her case and was sterilized. Through genealogy reports and in interviews with Carrie herself, we have come to learn that Carrie's daughter Vivian was not the result of teenage promiscuity, but a consequence of a rape by a man named Clarence Garland. He was a relative of her foster mother. We also learned that despite the reports at the time of the hearing, Vivian, who died at the age of 8, was not feeble-minded at all. She was described as a polite child of average intelligence. The decision by the court to allow carrier sterilization legitimized the various eugenic laws in this country. The fact that the highest court in our lands upheld the ruling set a precedent for other states to start similar programs for those they considered disabled without fear of any legal repercussions. 33 states and Puerto Rico had programs that allowed sterilization on anyone that the state deemed disabled in any way, therefore fit for procreation. California programs which forcefully sterilized over 20,000 minorities and institutionalized women was so robust that the Nazis modeled their ideas and programs when perfecting their own eugenics projects. As horrifying as this country's legalized forced sterilization policies were, they paled in comparison with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany's eugenic experiments during World War II. The racial ideology of the people of Germany at the time believed that to biologically improve their race, their population must favor Nordic traits at their base. Under Nazi eugenic policies, the people targeted as unworthy of life were prisoners, people with disabilities, people whom they considered feeble-minded, homosexual, idle, insane, weak, and those considered ethnically inferior. It is believed that more than 400,000 people were forcibly sterilized and 300,000 people were killed. The forced sterilization program engineered by the Nazis were largely inspired and funded by the eugenic beliefs and practices already taking place in this country. Medical and scientific professionals in Germany were inspired by the eugenic programs in California and began requesting literature promoting eugenics and sterilization. In the late 1920s, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology, whose focus was on physical and social anthropology and human genetics, was founded in Berlin. It was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. They were also the primary financial backer for research conducted by Josef Mengele. Mengele, who is remembered for the horrific experiments on prisoners in the concentration camps. He was also a member of the team who selected victims to be exterminated in the gas chamber. As World War II came to an end, and more Americans became aware of the atrocities committed by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, eugenics practices and beliefs fell out of favor in the United States. Unfortunately, as modern medical technology has become more sophisticated, a new form of eugenics has taken root in this country. The eugenic practices as we know it today is referred to as human genetic engineering. The goal of this science is to alter or remove genes in order to prevent or cure disease, or alter and improve the human body in a meaningful way. On the surface, these scientific advancements seem like they would be beneficial to the health and longevity of our society, but these advancements also come with a steep cost. Through the use of abortion, society began attempting to weed out undesirable traits in their children. Genetic testing is frequently used to allow expecting parents to identify potential diseases or birth defects in utero. Using the same discriminatory and bigoted logic they used to justify the eugenic practices in the past, parents are encouraged and sometimes pressured to abort any fetus that is suspected of having a disability. This modern form of eugenics is controversial since what is considered a negative trait is subject to individualized, transient, and fleeting whims of societal interpretation. Despite the general public's unfavorable and uninformed views, our disabled community is not a burden. They bring many wonderful contributions to our society. Just because they live or experience life differently doesn't mean that they are unworthy and forfeit the right to life due to a disease or a perceived defect. Much of America's eugenics practices, such as forced sterilizations, have gone unpunished. Some states like Virginia and North Carolina offered reparations to victims in the amount of $25,000. Unfortunately, they are the exception, not the rule. The legacy of eugenics is a dark, mostly forgotten part of America's history that is very rarely taught or talked about. As our scientific community ventures towards new eugenics breakthroughs, it is important to remember that the past horrors and let them serve as a warning. During our exploration of modern eugenics, we must remember to proceed with extreme caution and be mindful that every human life has value.